I want to talk about Ludwig Boltzmann. Ludwig Boltzmann was very widely known in statistical mechanics. He also promoted the idea of atomism since 1872. Then people did not know that there are atoms, molecules. But then he already foresaw that there might be atoms and molecules. But he was not supported by the people of that time. Both Mach and Ostwald were very influential authors. They disapproved of this view and subjected his work to strong and serious criticism. In our language, it was scholarly bullying. It hurt him so much that he went into a deep depression, severe depression because of the attacks on his work. Although he was a genius, but because he looked ahead 30 to 40 years into the future, because of this, he could not stand the fact that people did not understand him. Nor did he understand the philosophers who attacked him and his work. And these philosophers said, there are no atoms, they are not visible. A week after the sad event that will take place, Boltzmann's work will receive experimental evidence. He began to feel that all his life's work was being ruined by his adherence to atomism. Life began to crumble after he fell into a deep depression. Unfortunately, he committed suicide after being depressed. He couldn't stand it all and committed suicide. But the fact is that he could not stand this criticism, and the saddest thing in this story is that in a week his theory will be experimentally confirmed. Literally in a week Einstein will confirm his theories. And after I read this, it was very, very hard for me, because as a teacher, when I read Lisa Meitner's statements about Boltzmann, he was an excellent teacher. He carried a person along with him, and after his lessons it seemed as if you had discovered a new world for yourself. To be honest, the world has lost a great genius, an unrecognized great genius, a misunderstood great genius, I think so. Also here in the photographs we see Boltzmann himself. This is a monument to Boltzmann, and on his statue, it is carved about entropy. So I was very sad for him because he was attacked. And moreover, not everyone remembers his name, not everyone knows. Although it was he who put forward and adhered to and was on the side of atomism, and he spoke furiously about this, that most likely there are atoms. He promoted this philosophy. Here he is in the circle of the greatest scientists, to say the least. Lise Meitner was Boltzmann's student. Lise Meitner was the first woman in Germany. It is in Germany, not in the world. She was the first woman to reach great heights in science. However, this was not easy for her. Then women could not study. It was nonsense that a woman gets an education. That she is at the faculty of physics and mathematics. People had such an unrealistic perception of the world. She also managed to work during her career with such people as, here in the photo of the first photo we get it, Otto Hahn, Ludwig Boltzmann. Her professor was also the supervisor of the dissertation. Max Planck invited Meitner to work as an assistant at the University of Berlin. If we talk about Lise Meitner, the most important thing, it was she who predicted that uranium could most likely decay into 2 nuclei. And that perhaps it leads to a chain reaction. Perhaps this will lead to a large release of energy, and most likely, if this technology gets to the Germans, they will be able to create an atomic bomb. And then, having learned about this, American scientists convinced Albert Einstein to write a warning letter to Roosevelt. Roosevelt, in turn, because of this letter, created the Manhattan Project. In fact, it was Lise Meitner who discovered the fission of the nucleus and interpreted it correctly, and Einstein will also talk about this. He will say in his interview about Lisa Meitner. And moreover, the Nobel Prize was to be received by 3 scientists for the discovery of nuclear fission. Otto Hahn was supposed to get it, seems Weierstrass and Lise Meitner. The 3 of them were to receive the Nobel Prize for their paper. But because she was Jewish and because she was a woman, he was afraid to put her name, because he would have to answer for it in Germany. Plus, then there was this tense whole situation that was heating up. Therefore, it was not easy for Meitner anyway. It was also quite difficult for Otto Hahn. In general, everyone who was from a Jewish family, or at least had a hint, they were refused. About Feynman, I also said he was also refused. Here in the photograph you can see the participants of the 7th Sovli Congress on the structure and properties of the atom and the nucleus. Meitner is in the front row among the largest scientists. although she did not really know mathematics and chemistry, and she spoke honestly about it. But she was a very strong physicist, because she was able to predict, for example, from some data, what might happen. And she lived on a very small salary. I also wanted to emphasize that Albert Einstein, giving an interview in 1945, said, "I do not consider myself the creator of nuclear energy, I played only a secondary role in this." It was discovered in Berlin by Hahn, who still misinterpreted his discovery. Lisa Meitner gave a correct interpretation. It turns out that Otto Hahn was an excellent chemist, and Lisa Meitner proved to him that the nucleus can split. This is Otto Hahn receiving the Nobel Prize. Despite the fact that Lisa Meitner expressed her dissatisfaction with Otto Hahn not because they didn't give the Nobel, but for the fact that he participated in the development of the atomic bomb, she said, "How could you participate in this? Why didn't you even make some kind of passive aggression?" Moreover, when Liz Meitner in America was offered to start participating in Manhattan, that is, to build an atomic bomb, she said, "I will not build an atomic bomb for anything." Because she was a pacifist, that is, she did not want her name to be associated with atomic bombs. She refused awards or speeches in this regard, of course, therefore she did not aggress on the topic that she was not given the Nobel Prize and so on. She was a big person. An asteroid on the moon Venus was named after her, and there is the Hahn-Meitner Institute in Berlin, but I searched on the internet, it turns out that this institute was renamed the Helmholtz Institute. This is also a famous scientist, but also a genius. Meitner. There are also streets in Berlin. I think that's all. Once they even mocked her. There was such an incident, which I think is unpleasant for any person. She once wrote an article about space problems in science. And the editor he wrote, "Problems of cosmetic physics," changed the article just because she was a woman. For the editor of articles, before that a woman writes articles on such serious topics, it was kind of unacceptable for them, and they made fun of her like that. It was very ugly when I read it. Because when she came to give a lecture on this topic, she saw most of the women in the hall, and at first she did not understand what was the matter. It turned out that it was because of the editor who was joking.